Growing up in the UK in the early 80s, I spent a huge part of my childhood watching cartoons, and all of the different shows I watched could be divided into two distinct categories. My favourite cartoons like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, The Real Ghostbusters and Mask fell into the first category, cartoons based on toy lines. But other childhood favourite cartoons like Danger Mouse, Banana Man and Super Ted were pure children's entertainment that fell into the second category, cartoons without accompanying toy lines. Another firm childhood favourite of mine was Inspector Gadget, produced by Dick Entertainment. But this cartoon is a little bit more difficult to categorise. The Inspector Gadget cartoon certainly wasn't used to promote a full toy line, so it doesn't fit into the first category. But it doesn't easily fit into the second category either, because it did spawn one of the greatest 80s action figures ever based on a single cartoon character. Hello toy fans, my name is Tony and welcome back to the Analog Toys YouTube channel and the feature of today's vintage toy review, the large size Inspector Gadget action figure. Inspector Gadget is a French-Canadian-American cartoon series that originally ran from 1983 to 1986. The series revolves around the adventures of a clumsy, dim-witted detective named Inspector Gadget, a human being with an array of different bionic gadgets built into his body that he uses to fight crime. In a truly inspired piece of casting, Don Adams, who played Maxwell Smart in the hit 60s TV show Get Smart, was hired to voice the character of Inspector Gadget.
Stop in the name of the law! Go, Gadget!
With its mix of adventure, intrigue and slapstick comedy, Inspector Gadget was an instant hit with the youth of the 80s, and the show aired in syndication for many years after it was cancelled. Even though Inspector Gadget has all this fantastic bionic equipment, he's ultimately clueless and incompetent, and survives perilous situations and malfunctioning gadgets, often by sheer good luck.
Wowzers! Go, Gadget on! Wowzers! It's food time, kids!
In each episode, Inspector Gadget's niece Penny and her intelligent dog Brain secretly help him solve each case, which always involves Gadget's nemesis, Dr. Claw, the head of the criminal organisation, MAD.
I'll get you yet, Gadget!
Filling out the rest of the cartoon's cast of characters is Chief Quimby, Inspector Gadget's short-tempered boss and Chief of Police of Metro City. I never had the Inspector Gadget action figure when I was a kid. In fact, I didn't even know it existed until I was an adult, and that's a real shame because I would have loved this toy when I was a kid. In my collection, I have the French-Canadian version of this toy, which was manufactured by Bandai. But there is an American variation of this action figure produced by Galoob. There are some significant differences between the Bandai and Galoob versions of this toy, and I'll discuss these a little later in the video. For now, let's take a closer look at the Bandai version. The first thing that strikes me about this action figure is how faithful it is to the cartoon. Inspector Gadget looks perfectly accurate, like he just walked right out of the animation, and he comes dressed in his signature trench coat. The Inspector Gadget action figure also comes packed with play value, featuring several spring-loaded action features. By pressing a series of buttons on the back of the action figure, you can operate Gadget's extending neck and legs, his extending arm, and his firing pop-out hand. With all these spring-loaded features, this toy really reminds me of the Maskatron action figure from the $6 Million Man toy line, and just like this toy, the Inspector Gadget action figure comes with a ton of accessories. Gadget's magic hand can be inserted into his hat and used to hold either his cartoon mallet or his umbrella parachute. Inspector Gadget also comes equipped with a helicopter, which is fitted to his hat and features a control handle for flying himself out of danger. Topping off the accessories are an authentic pair of working handcuffs, but sadly, Bandai never made any other action figures for this line, so poor old Gadget never gets to arrest anyone. As I mentioned earlier, there are some differences between the Bandai version of this action figure and the later issue Galoob version, so let's take a closer look at these variations. The first issue Galoob version came in a large box, similar in size to the Bandai version, and the action figure was almost identical. However, there was a second issue version of this action figure released by Galoob that had some notable differences. Firstly, the second issue box was narrower and featured a side flap, so the accessories were now positioned underneath the Inspector Gadget action figure, instead of being next to him in the box. Also, the biggest difference is that the second issue Galoob version of this action figure featured straight arms instead of the articulated elbows that came with the Bandai version. Many of you will be aware that the early issue G.I. Joe action figures came with straight arms that were later changed to swivel arm barrel grip, and this improvement was made by Hasbro to make the toys more sellable. In the case of Inspector Gadget, however, the reason for the change was very different. In Galoob's case, both the straight arms and narrow box were conscious decisions made by the company to help reduce production costs of the toy. Lastly, Galoob also changed the colour of the spring-operated buttons from yellow to pale blue. This is only a minor variation, but still worth noting since it will aid you in identifying the different versions of the Inspector Gadget action figure. So as a collector, if you're seeking out a vintage Inspector Gadget action figure, you need to ask yourself whether you want to collect a Bandai or a Galoob version of this toy. I also think there is an easy way to make this choice. If you like to collect mint-in-box toys, go for the Galoob version, because the colours on the packaging are much more vibrant and the box looks much better on display than the Bandai issued packaging. However, if you like collecting loose complete toys, go for either the Bandai version or the first issue Galoob version, because the lack of articulation in the arms of the second issue Galoob version really limits the displayability of the action figure. Overall, the Inspector Gadget action figure is a wonderful toy that remains incredibly faithful to the cartoon, but it does suffer for not having any additional characters from the cartoon released in action figure form. I score the Inspector Gadget action figure 4 out of 5.
Wowzers! I'd better get out of here.
So that's our review of the large size Inspector Gadget action figure. Did you agree with our score? Please leave us a comment in the section below, and if you like this video, hit the like button. And don't forget to click subscribe to stay up to date for more vintage toy goodness.